up, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Hobby Hotline. Big news in the hobby tonight we'll dive into here in just a few moments, but my name, of course, is Drew, or the DH, and joining me we've got from Sports Card Nation, Mr. John Newman. What's up, dude?
A Monday hobby hotline. That just sounds weird. It's weird. I almost feel like it's Tuesday, or it should be Tuesday.
Yes, I completely agree. And also joining us, we have, of course, the man himself, Mr. Stale Gum, Chris Harris. What's up?
Yeah, welcome to the latest episode of As the Hobby Turns.
Yeah.
Feels like we're living in this soap opera.
That we are. We actually
suing these guys. This league's pulling their license. Who knows?
I know. And we actually have a fourth member of the Hobby Hotline crew we're going to bring in now to discuss tonight's crazy bombshell news. Mr. King NASCAR. You got that echo again.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Logan fix his camera because he knows exactly what the problem is. We had that issue a little while ago. We'll bring him right back in, but we also have Logan Ward with us as well tonight. What's up, Rich? Everyone else, thank you guys for tuning in to tonight's special last-minute put-together edition show.
We just slapped this together at the last minute, folks.
Yeah, we scrambled. We scrambled like a quarterback. Let's use a football analogy.
Yeah,
we scrambled like a quarterback to get this done. This is just, it's funny, guys. Too. I was thinking about this even just before the news broke. Like there wasn't a ton of new. A lot of times the week of the national, there's all these announcements come out. It was actually a fairly tame national, and now that the national's kind of over, we're seeing a lot of this stuff now.
Yeah, Arch Manning was kind of the announcement of the national, if anything. Was Arch Manning actually speaking? I don't think many people even knew he had a voice. So, I mean, you got to actually see him out in public. I thought he was a mythical figure. But you got to see him. I think that was the biggest announcement. But the people I talked to at those companies, trying to get any information I could out of them, all told me that big stuff was coming after the national. And now I can see why they didn't want to announce it at the show. Because, I mean, look at the shit show we're in now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. This is the kind of news you don't want to do when you're literally maybe set up across from the person that it puts in a bad situation. And when everyone who's when 60% of the hobby is on premises to ask you questions, or at least try to ask you questions. Imagine Michael Rubin walking the floor if the national was tomorrow. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's just it makes sense that again, and this stuff probably didn't just happen today. We're hearing about it today.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's been in the pipeline, and it's like Chris said. You got litigation, you got counter litigation, you've got people not honoring commitments.
Litigation now.
Yeah, this is not like I'd rather be doing this show talking about something more sort of upbeat and positive, but that's
I would much rather talk about like Bobby Witt's resurgence or something like that in the market, or some of the great things that we're seeing, like how amazing Platinum Anniversary was this year. I could go on with a ton of positive things, but yeah, we're sitting here looking at this. I got a question before we. I think we need to look over the statement in just a minute. I know you have that, John, but over under, guys, I want to know. I put it at 9:01 a.m., but over under, what time tomorrow does Panini sue the NFL Players Association? What time?
I got 9:01 Eastern or 9:01 Central.
Well, Central, because
so I would say
9.
8:59. I'll be like.
Okay. Yeah.
My Price is Right.
So we'll put it at 9. So we'll put it right at 9 then, because that lawsuit's coming. I mean, there's no way Panini. First of all, their lawyers are already, they're good and they're ready to go. They're working already. might as well throw another one in there, but they can't just take that flying down. I mean, there's got to be something.
They're gonna
And
there's gonna be a response. They're probably gonna respond. I think the first response may not even be, a countersuit or an injunction. I think at first they're just going to say that. I think they release a statement saying they're sorry. It's sad that the NFLPA can't honor.
Yeah.
We'll try to paint the NFLPA as sort of like quitting basically and not honoring the contract. I think that'll be the first response fired, and then I think the litigation, or an injunction is probably
and
the
keep in
next
mind,
step.
Panini America's lawyer is a guy named David Boyce.
Yes.
Who is a shark.
Yes,
this was the guy who represented Al Gore during the Florida recount. And although he wound up losing for reasons, this guy is one of the best lawyers in America.
Yes,
and
he is.
And Rex is working for Panini. So
Rex,
this is going to be going on for a while, I think.
That's a great point. And that's why I say I think this is filed immediately. I think, especially John, since you said that they knew about this, I think an injunction, some type of suit is going to be filed immediately. Rex, I want to touch on your question in just a few moments, as I do have some semi-news on this, as I've been speaking to a couple of people, both from
Panini. Well, listen, Drew. Before you get to that, which is cool inside stuff you do have, let's put the
that's what I was going to say. Let's read the statement. Yeah,
let's give that as the baseline, and then we can play off of that. So I'm going to put it up on the screen here. I don't know if you want me to read it or you.
Be my guest, good man.
All right. NFL Players Inc. has terminated its trading card agreement with Panini, effective immediately. Two big words right there. Effective immediately. Fanatics has the exclusive right to make NFLPA branded trading cards. The decision has no impact on any individual player's contractual agreements with Panini. If you represent any players with an existing Panini agreement, the NFLPA recommends that you encourage the player to fulfill their contractual commitments to Panini. If you have any questions, please contact. That name is redacted for obvious reasons. So basically, what this is saying is we as a whole players organization are pulling our agreement. But if you have individual exclusive right contracts, please try to honor those.
And so now we're basically at Fanatics has the name and likeness rights, and Panini has the team names and logos. So everyone can make football cards, but no one can make "quote unquote" fully licensed football cards. If it were to stand as it is at this moment.
And here's the other thing. I take, like, I don't know how that hit you, but when I even just reading it out loud again, that wasn't the first time I read it, but it's the line in there that says Fanatics now has. I mean, that's where I think Panini is going to go after him and say, listen, you don't want us to make the cards, that's fine, but that license doesn't expire, until 2026. So Fanatics should still have, I think Panini's going to take the stance. You don't want us to make cards for the next couple years, 2 to 3 years. Okay. But no way. Fanatics should still have to wait to 2026. Like I think that's right. If I'm not a lawyer, but that's one of the first things I think of is like, you can tell us not to do it, but you can't just give it something that we had exclusive to 2026 to someone now.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, I've got a question. Does this set the precedence for the NFLPA to say in 5 years from now to tell Fanatics, hey, we're throwing away our agreement with you. We're going to let Panini go back or somebody else go back and make cards again? I mean, does that set any kind of precedence, do you think?
I mean, if I'm Fanatics, I would definitely be looking. I mean, unless it's unless you've got someone in there, Fanatics has someone in there that they know is a massive decision maker and controlling that decision, and they're not in there at all times. Yeah, I would absolutely be like, okay, shit, this could easily happen to us. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
let's
I
not
would think
forget
so.
that the sports leagues and the Players Association have equity in this new trading card regime that Fanatics has set up.
Yeah.
When we say Fanatics, we really mean this new company that Fanatics is forming, in which baseball, NBA, NFL, and their players associations all have points in. So
yes. Oh no, they're all incentivized to absolutely go to Fanatics as soon as possible. 100%, Chris.
Yeah, and you know, what this screams to me, guys, and again, what you're going to hear a lot tonight, folks, just so you know, is a lot of speculation, because that's all we can do, right? But we're speculating based on facts we know to already be true. So
exactly,
you know, what it looks like to me is Fanatics tried to acquire Panini. Panini and them couldn't get on the same page price wise. Maybe Panini just didn't even want to sell, and so that price was just set at a figure that wasn't going to get a deal done anyway. Fanatics and Michael Rubin doesn't like much like Michael Eisner from Topps. Those kind of guys don't like to lose. They're impatient, right? Ruben's got keys to new cars. And he does, you know, a couple of these cars, he's told, well, you can't drive it until 2026. Here's the keys, but it's got to stay, much like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's got to stay in the garage.
He's an impatient teenager.
Yeah, and he wants to drive these things. And so Panini rebuked any kind of acquisition. And so I think, you know, quietly and stealthily, you know, Fanatics went to the NFLPA and say, do this, and we can get started much sooner and be at the same table eating together. And that's my thing. If I'm Panini, I'm like, listen, you want to like pull our license? You know, there's legal things there too, but all right. But you can't just give it to someone early. Like this is where the problem lies. Like, it's one thing to pull it from us, but to give it to someone else 2 years early, that just smells really bad to me.
Well, and is this a conflict of interest in some way? What do you think on the Players Association? I mean, they have equity.
It's bad faith, and I would argue it's close to a conflict of interest, yes, but I absolutely argue it's bad faith. And I mean, if you're literally what they're based on is negotiations. I mean, the NFLPA is all about negotiating. Everything they do is negotiations. And so, I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't look good at all for the optics of the NFLPA. Unless something were to come out for a good reason for them to say that they're going to pull this. Now, I don't expect that to happen, but keep in mind, there were a lot of accusations in that Michael Rubin manifesto, aka the Fanatics lawsuit. There was a lot of, you know, really big shots at Panini, a lot revolving around football. And so if some of that were to maybe have been found out to be true, maybe they did have a good reason. You know, like John said, this is all speculation at this point, 1000%. But unless they had a legit reason for pulling it, then I would absolutely argue it's bad faith and probably a little bit of a conflict of interest.
And to me, even if Panini did something egregious, Drew and Chris and Logan, right? Let's just assume that's to be true.
Yeah.
And we don't know, but again, there's a lot of you still can't give it to someone who shouldn't get it to 2020. Even if we screwed up, even if I'm Panini, even if we screwed up, you know what I mean? Like, and to do that, all sides would have to like agree. Like Panini would have to get paid and say, okay, we've settled out of court. It is what it is. We don't necessarily like what happened, but we went to the bargaining table. We've agreed on a settlement.
Yeah.
And Fanatics will have the license going forward. Blah blah blah. Panini's going to be just fine. You haven't seen the last of Panini type of deal, but you can't. It's exactly what Logan said and Rex said. The leagues are basically giving the license themselves. I mean,
yes,
it's definitely a point of contention with a conflict of interest here. It'd be different if the NFLPA said, "Listen, we don't want Panini making our football cards for the next 2 years. We're going to give it to this other company for 2 years, and then in 2026, Fanatics will rightfully take over."
right.
They're not doing that. They're saying, "Hey, Fanatics is going to take over." It says right there in the statement, effective
right
immediately.
now.
Yeah. Fanatics is. I mean, that's bold to put that in writing like that.
No, it is. That's absolutely ridiculous. And it kind of goes with, I mean, one of the biggest things that everyone's asking here now is obviously what's going on with products. And Rex mentioned, who of course owns an amazing card shop, that Luminance football delivered today, encased in Prism Draft, have been paid for by direct accounts but not shipped. Donruss Elite is supposed to be charged to their credit cards on Thursday for card shops. Outside of that, nothing has been announced. Now, one thing this obviously does is clear up all that confusion about the Will Levis, CJ Stroud, and all those. Obviously, they're not going to be in Panini, so those Panini instant autographs are probably going to be your one and only chance to get there in possibly the only rookie autos that they have, true rookies. But to kind of piggyback off of that, Rex, and ask you guys what you guys think about this. What do you guys think this means for the future of football cards this year? Because I've spoken with someone at the NFLPA who just reached back out to me right before we went live after I heard Darren Ravel, who was live earlier today, who actually broke this news, stating that if Panini were to file a lawsuit against the NFLPA, if they do, that it could end up meaning no football cards this year. So I reached out to my source, the NFLPA, and cannot reveal the name at this time, but basically they're saying that they can't confirm or deny that, but that is one of the possibilities. So we may be in a time here where a couple of products come out and then it stops. Like, we might not have football this year.
Rex had a question in the comment. What would NFL licensed cards look like without the NFLPA license?
I guess the leaf cards.
Do you remember the 70s?
Yeah.
Football cards in the 70s?
Yeah.
How Topps had the Players Association's license, right?
Right.
And they came out with a flagship set with all the players, but all the logos were airbrushed.
Mm-hmm.
Fleer had the NFL license,
yeah,
and they kept putting out these in-action sets.
Mm-hmm.
And there were basically like 2 or 3 cards per team.
Yeah.
And they were action shots.
So you could see who the player was. You knew who the player was. You couldn't mention
who the player was on the card.
Right.
So like if you had a card of like Walter Payton going up the middle,
yeah,
you had to show like not just Payton, but like 5 or 6 other players. So it had to be like widely cropped, and you couldn't mention individual players on the front of the card. That's what you could make with just an NFL license.
Yes.
But not a player's license.
Or those.
Is that what collectors want in the year 2023?
Right. Or those kind of in the game cards where they have just the jersey cutouts, like the fake jersey cutouts, and then the little patch on it, just like 6 of those. But you couldn't put the name on there, so you would just have even then, you could put the name, you just couldn't put the logos. You could use like an old in the game set, their little the quad 6s and the stuff that Leaf did for a little bit here recently. I guess that's another look at what they could look like. But
that or guys, they could just make retired or deceased
They could
players.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
and no disrespect to those legends and what, but as someone, I'm sure there'd be some demand for that. But listen, we all know rookies drive products in
Yeah.
the year 2023, and that isn't a new phenomenon. I just use 2023 because that's the year we're actually in.
Right.
I don't know like how many people are going to be clamoring for the Panini Prism Legends of the NFL release. You know what I
Well,
mean? And that's not gonna. They're not going to be able to ask for the prices they would on a normal release for a release like that. Is where I'm going.
Yeah.
So
well, 97 Upper Deck Legends football. I mean, that's one of the
Yeah.
greatest football card sets ever made. And it's
Absolutely.
all legends.
but the key word there,
But
Chris, is 1997. It's a different
I was about to
hobby.
say, look
Like
But if
at
you load it up with a lot of autographs, though.
well, you have a kind of a precedence for this right now with Donruss Baseball. It's the first Panini release this year where they can't use active players. They can use prospects, but they can't use any actual rookies or current players. And I mean, Donruss Baseball, obviously it was unlicensed before and it wasn't the strongest product in the world, but it's struggling a lot more than it normally does. And the prospects are not near enough to hold the product up when you take out all the big rookies. I mean, at least, so I mean, you do have that for comparison for what John's saying in 2023. I do agree that 97 set's a little different. And I think there's ways to do it to where
and
you could
Chris
make some
Chris
amazing
points out with
sets.
the autograph, you'd have to put
Yeah. If you make
a
a
bunch of
football
autographs.
version of like 97 Upper Deck Legends,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
2000 greats of the game baseball.
But that's one product, and the thing is,
Yeah.
the thing is they're going to have to fill out an
You're going to have
entire
to
product.
fill up
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put up a comment from Rex here because it really kind of hits home to how I sort of feel with all this stuff as
Probably
a
the one I
longtime
was about to
hobbyist.
put up. Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, none of this is what collectors want. This will turn collectors off, and they have, they'll leave the hobby if this stretches out too long. Yeah, this is not good for the hobby. I don't even do a ton of modern stuff anymore, guys. I'm a heavy vintage, and it still bothers me that this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we went from that 1.5, 2 years of crescendo where everything was great. You had regular news channel talking about the rise and boom of the hobby. And now you're going the other way where now they're talking about litigation and people not honoring contracts and pulling, it's a bad look. If someone is thinking about or on the fence about getting in the hobby, this stuff is not going to be what pushes them into the hobby and gets them active in the hobby. And it also, besides that, for folks that are in the hobby, it may just be the tipping point that they just, they're thinking about getting out and they're just like, this is it. I'm out of here.
Oh, yeah. If
And
you're
so,
on the fence and you're fed up, none of this is going to help. I mean, at all. And if you're someone new, why would you want to go into a space and put, especially if you're going into like start sinking money into this, you know what I mean, heavily? What in the last 2 weeks has given you any faith that there's any strength in anything right now? I mean, we know there is, but to an outsider's perspective, yeah, I mean, none of this is great at all.
And again, it goes back to, I'll be real quick, Chris. It goes back, you're going to have a company here now, whether it's this year or actually in 2026, that's going to be covering 75% of the four major sports. And I'll say it. I said it when the Topps acquisition came down a couple years. I said, I just don't like the way the direction is headed. That's just my opinion for the 2 cents that's worth. And I think that and I think the way Fanatics has went about it too, guys, just kind of cutthroat and very cunning and not necessarily above board. It's just a bad look that this is how they operate, and kind of being the big bully with the big stick and give us your lunch money, kid. And I just don't think I think Fanatics could approach this a different way and got sort of similar results and not looked like the mean mugger, and so I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, and I do want to point out real quick, Liz, that that this Saturday we do have Rich Klein, Dr. Beckett, and John. Who was the third person joining the show on Saturday?
Danny Black. So
yes, Danny Black. Yes,
Danny Black, Dr. Jen, and Rich Klein, and that's a lot of experience there. And by time Saturday rolls around, I'm sure there'll be additional wrinkles.
And they'll have lots of information and lots to say on this. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure quite a bit.
One last comment. I want to address something that Rex in the chat. Ultimately, none of this is what collectors want. They will turn collectors off and leave the hobby if this stretches out too long. Well, you know what? This is how monopolies operate.
Yeah.
They don't have to give you or me what we want. They'll give us what they say they want.
Yes.
And what we want doesn't matter. So,
Yep. I mean, and you'll like it.
This is kind of how it's been under the current monopoly licensees that we have now. So yeah, get used to more of it. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah, this to me, I'm an NASCAR guy. I have no skin in any of these sports at all. But for me, I agree with all you guys. This is a bad look from anybody looking to get into the hobby, anybody wanting to stay in the hobby. I think we talked about it earlier in our chat. There's a lot of vintage out there to collect. So there's nothing saying we have to buy any of this new stuff.
Yeah.
So
I'll just keep on buying 90s and 2000s baseball.
There you go, brother.
Yeah. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm a heavy vintage guys, but as content creators, right, we have to kind of talk about it. I do open new stuff. I don't want to make it like I don't open anything. I do want to as I used to.
I do want to add in, we've got another member of the Hobby Hotline crew who's going to jump on here, guys. And if you do have any questions or anything, hit us up. Like I said, this is, we are doing mostly speculation tonight, but please drop some comments or anything in the chat. But I do want to bring in Mr. Victor, the rookie card man. Dude, no rookies this year, maybe? What the heck?
It's looking that way, right? It's crazy.
You're going to have a lot of work trying to explain to people how this year is going to work.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, man. I'm like shocked here. I wanted to jump on to say a couple of things here because I do have, at one point in my career, I was in management and in where I was at, I had to deal with 6 unions. Mm-hmm. Now, within those 6 unions, what I figured out was, as I was going through their contracts, I had to know all 6 contracts because I had to respect the boundaries of those contracts. So I was responsible for that. But what I found out was some of these contracts are written really weak. Some of these contracts that I was dealing with were written very broad, where it gave the company a lot of flexibility. But some of the strongest unions that I had to deal with were the unions where their contracts were written very well. Their contracts were written in a way that protected the union organization. The contracts were written in a lot of detail. And when it comes to this, I guess the speculation point on my end is that this contract that the PA had with Panini was it's written in a way where it's either a willful and egregious violation of the agreement, or it's written in a way where it's just really weak. It's not written very well, and they ended up finding a loophole to get around this
it was just written with it where it gave them a lot of outs, in other words.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's my problem, though. I want to get Victor's opinion. Here's my problem with that. It's one thing for the NFLPA to say, hey, Panini, we don't want you making our products effective today anymore. But you can't, to me, you can't say, okay, but Fanatics gets it today. It's one thing. It's one thing to tell one company you can't do it, but another company who officially shouldn't get it till 2026, they're going to hand it to them on a silver platter today. That's. I think that bothers me more than the initial, shock of them saying effective immediately.
Especially John, when, like Chris pointed out earlier, they're incentivized monetarily to go to Fanatics too. You know what I mean? So you're taking it away and then giving it to a company where you're more financially incentivized and you're going to get more money out of this. So that's
what I was talking about with the conflict of interest is where I.
Yeah.
So John, what I hear you saying, John, is that it's like ethically this is wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would the wording, if it was worded like this, Victor, I'd be less critical of it. If it said, "Listen, effective immediately, we're pulling the license from Panini. They'll no longer be making our football products. As it stands right now, Fanatics is due to take over the licensing in 2026. If the parties can get together, and if the parties that be can come and get together before that and come to some agreement, maybe that can happen sooner. But right now, we just don't want Panini making, But they to me, they can't say, "Hey, here you go, Fanatics. You're all set. Are you ready? 2 years earlier, you got this." I think that's the problem.
I've been very opinionated of the Players Association for a very long time. But I think you're onto something there, John. I mean, they're the ones that should have been stepping in here and kind of being plain referee here to honor the contract that they had with Panini, and to pull this out underneath them like that is just I don't know the details, right? Because I don't know the contract, but from the outside looking in, it doesn't look right. And what I know from my experience is that these types of matters are basically would go to arbitration. And at least in the industry that I'm in, basically when it gets to the arbitrator, they don't care about past practice. They don't care about your feelings. All they care about is, what does the contract say? At the end of the day, it's going to be what's in black and white, and that's how they're going to base their decision.
Yep.
And let's talk about it, especially with Victor here. Let's talk about it. Let's just say this goes so Panini files an injunction, everything's sort of on pause. Like we talked about just before Victor came out, there may be a situation for at least this year. Whatever football products have been made, but there may be no additional.
They may put a stop. I mean, I asked, and my specific question that I was asked was, is there a possibility that all football products are halted this year? And from the Players Association themselves, they said, as it stands at this moment, that is a possibility.
Interesting. 100%. And I think that can happen because if you remember in 2011, 2012, when there was a basketball strike and all this stuff, what ended up happening in 2012, we had a double rookie year class, if you remember that.
Yes.
And that might be a possibility here.
Yeah.
The same thing happened in hockey when they had the 1 year pause.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you're football and the Players Association, right, this is not good for your players really to not be, on cardboard and chrome out there for fans to enjoy. You're so, like, I get it. If you're pissed at Panini, right? They did something that we're not aware of. Maybe we don't know, but you're still sort of cutting your own nose off to spite your face. Because if we go 2 years, if we go to 2026 without anyone making any football cards, like who wins that? Like there are no winners.
No.
Zero. Like I don't, Fanatics didn't win because in that case they still got to wait to 2026.
Exactly.
Panini loses because now they can't produce cards they won a license for, and football loses because their guys are not being showcased on a hobby that's doing very well. Like this has the potential to just be a lose type of deal.
Yeah. Is
And
this?
that's not good. That's not good. You don't need me to tell you that's not good. It's just not good.
I know if you were to rank the sports as far as hobby goes, baseball is the number one sport, basketball number two, football number three. Maybe you could switch 2 and 3. But if we go a full year without football cards,
no, that's a massive blow to the hobby.
Is this the beginning of the end of this current boom? Is this 1994 all over again?
I don't think it's 94. As someone that's obviously majorly in the football hobby, cover it for Hobby News Daily. I mean, it's something that I super collect everything, as you can see on my wall. Football is one of my bigger sports that I do collect. It may be, I would argue that it's right up there, with about the baseball market. I think it's obviously a little smaller and it's, a little more collector based than I think baseball is nowadays. But that if you take football out, yeah, you're going to have a massive, effect on the hobby, but you are going to still have those Bowman U's and those NIL license deals where, thank God, we have those. I think that may be enough to hold collectors off until they get that double rookie year, whatever it is, like Victor was saying. Obviously it's not gonna, there's no situation where that's a good thing. There's no situation whatsoever it's a good thing, but I think they might be able to power through it with other things. I will say that when it comes to this year's rookie class, whoever bought those Panini Instant, CJ Stroud and all the other autos that they had put up, brilliant, because that's probably going to be the only rookie auto that the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft are going to have. So I think that card on Panini Instant a couple of weeks ago was probably the biggest thing that they could have done. And like as Rex says, money-wise, football right there. I mean, biggest selling category. Baseball is number 2. Overall in the secondary market and in the grand scheme of things, when you add in vintage and everything, baseball may be a bigger collectible sport. But when it comes to modern, that modern football market is massive. So, I mean, I don't know.
Here's the other thing. I don't know, and I want everyone's take, but in Victor too, being it pertains to rookie cards. Obviously, let's say there is no more new football product made. Obviously, some products are released. Those are going to be rookie cards that came out in a year. Those are their first cards as professionals, right? If they make whatever products come out already, Victor, for football with this year's current rookie class, right? But then they don't make any of the ones that were on the docket. Those never come to light. And then 2 years later, like to me, like Anthony Richardson, that's not going to be his rookie card in 2026. I don't care how you try to spin it. Even you, who makes good convincing arguments on rookies, Victor, you wouldn't be able to convince me Anthony Richardson's rookie card is going to be in a 2026 product anymore. I can't swallow that.
But before you answer that, Victor, also, if you saw Rex's comment, those are all draft products. So no official actual pro uni products have been paid for at all. They could easily be stopped before a pro uniform rookie is released.
Well, he mentioned Luminance came out.
I believe that's last year with Purdy. Yeah.
All right.
2022 product.
Well, COVID threw such a.
No, Rex, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure that that's Purdy year, because Flawless just came out and all that. So I'm assuming Luminance is still 2022.
Yeah, and studying the what happened with the NBA in 2011, 2012, those 2 rookie classes ended up being an absolute disaster. It was just not good. Moreover, guys, I think here what worries me the most is I'm hoping for a quick resolve, and I don't think it's going to happen. What we have right now is what we had before today was 3 lawsuits, right? Panini first with the taking away of the employees, and then we had the most recent lawsuit, and then a counter lawsuit by Fanatics. But now this just further complicates the legal issues, the legal minutia that's on the table, and that concerns me as far as the timeline of this thing actually being resolved, especially listening to Paul Lesko here recently, where an antitrust lawsuit that does not get resolved quickly at all. And so that's my biggest concern as far as the speculating goes.
And Victor, you also, if we're going to, speculate and discuss lawsuits, Panini may have another one on their hands, as we talked about on this week's Let Me Get That Autograph. Bo Nickel could have been put in UFC products like Select without having a contract signed, being put in as an auto redemption. That still has not been addressed by Panini publicly, even though we've had multiple attempts at them. Bo Nickel's camp has said that they're going to put out a statement regarding it. Once he signed a redemption card, I'm never going to sign this, was how he personalized and inscribed a redemption card he was given. And they have not responded if he even had a contract. So there's possibly even more lawsuits coming out of all this. So,
wow.
Yeah. Which is great for the hobby. The more lawsuits, the better. That's
okay. John, I was wrong. Luminance is 2023, but yes, as Rex said, they're in college
unis. But it does like Anthony Richardson will say Indianapolis Colts on the card, and it'll be in his Florida Gators uniform. So it's still a rookie card for those that want him in their Colts uniform. That's where those folks may not get what they thought they were going to get.
That Panini Instant card.
So they'll only have 500 rookie cards instead of 5,000.
Yeah.
No, Victor.
Chronicle came out. They already
they're going to have 5,000 cards instead of 500,000.
Chronicle gave them 250 right away. So we're good there.
And so, guys, I real quick too. I thought to myself, I've been in this hobby for a long time. I'm old. I can't remember the last time something like this really happened. And so I asked someone who would know before I came on, and they reminded me the last time something along these lines happened was 2010 with Upper Deck and Major League Baseball licenses. Upper Deck was not paying some of the players their agreed amount for services, and the Players Association said, "Oh, you don't want to pay some of our guys, then you get nothing," and they pulled the license. But again, the hobby is different. Yeah, as we all know, this is bigger news today than it was even in 2010, and it just has more of a ripple effect, today's hobby comparatively. But it's not unprecedented, but I don't remember how much longer Upper Deck had on that baseball contract anyway. This is 2 years we're talking here. I if my memory serves me right, I think this is a longer contract that is being pulled ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, hey, I've got a question for you guys. So what does this do to Panini as far as, let's say they've already got some of these football products packed out and packaged and put in cases and ready to go? Does this mean they can't ship those?
Possibly.
Does this mean that they have to, if that's the case, they've got to issue refunds to all their customers? I mean, this could really be messy.
Well, according to Rex, only at least stores, and if you're buying direct, they've only paid for a couple of new products. A lot haven't been billed yet. But yeah, if they put a stop to it, then if they come out in 3 days and say absolutely no more blah blah blah, no football, etc., I'm assuming then it's going to be a refund mess and all that. I do think we're going to end up, at least if I had to take a guess, I think we're going to end up with a lot of football products that are going to have to be quote unquote destroyed. And it'll be interesting to see how many of those are backdoored. But
can you imagine that? Think about what you just said, because I was about to say this. So let's even say they don't get backdoored. Let's say just Panini says, you know what? we're gonna release them. Like if the FBI wants a raid and confiscate that, let them handle that. But we're gonna make this product. A store gets it, right? A store says, you know what? I'm a little nervous. I'm just gonna leave this at home in my basement. Right? You may have product that years later is going to be like red hot. Hey, sealed 2023 optic football that was never supposed to see the light of day, at least according to a judge, right? Potentially, yet it exists, right? And now you're dealing with, the stuff will appear in like heritage auctions many years, later. That it's crazy. And then, if you're Panini, I think everyone in this room, probably a lot of people in chat, products, we get the product, it's released today. That process is a year before that checklist and getting so Panini's already been working on stuff that's for a year. Probably.
Do you know how many
9 to
CJ
12
Stroud
months.
and Levis cards had to be destroyed? Oh yeah, tons.
So this is, and that costs them money. So people don't like losing money, anybody, and so like Victor said, I think the litigation is probably going to continue, and then relitigation and countersuits, and if I'm Upper Deck, what are you thinking? If you're Upper Deck, if I'm Upper Deck, I'm calling all my hockey contacts and saying, listen, we love you. I hope you love us.
If I'm Upper Deck, I don't do anything, John, except for get every single person's attention on finally getting a release date calendar back up to track. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I get pandemic, but it's been a couple years now. Well, let's release some products that are 2 years
agree,
old.
but what I'm saying is you don't think, love to add that last piece to their major 4 collection. That would it would complete their rainbow.
Owns the jerseys already. I mean, that Fanatics already makes the jerseys, sells the apparel. So they're definitely kissing.
If I'm Upper Deck, I'm a little nervous with all this stuff. It's like a war zone, and the bombs are outside your country, but they're right on the border, and you're like, what do we do here? We're sort of be the next one here if this domino falls. We're the last domino standing. So if I'm Upper Deck, I'm just reaching out to whoever, saying, hey, we good. Let's keep those lines of communication open, that sort of thing, so.
No, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, any other comments or anything on the situation, or want to leave it till Saturday?
I would just like to, I'm hoping that this will get to an arbitrator or a judge or whoever all this mess gets in front of, and they do like what they did in 1980 and just throw all that out. Everybody can produce cards. Forget all of this legal garbage. Everybody
just put a limit on it. You're allowed to have the license,
and then Victor, your alarm clock goes off. Your alarm clock goes off, and you realize you were dreaming, and it's time to go to work.
I hear you.
I have the same dream. I'm not picking on you because I have the same dream. We probably have different alarm clocks, but that's what happens to me. That's what happens to me too. But I've always said I don't think it's great that one company controls that much of the board.
No.
I think it leads to complacency. I think it leads to higher prices for consumers. I think it leads to watered down products potentially. I mean, we could do a whole show on why monopolies or almost monopolies are really not great. But I hope. I just, as someone who's been in the hobby a long time, like most of us on the screen right now, you want your hobby to do well. You don't want black eyes and stuff like this to make it look bad. But that seems like it's par for the course now. And like Victor said, and Paul Lesko said, and he's actually my guest this coming week. There's more litigation coming. I mean, he was laughing because he's like, I'm like a kid. This is his quote, not mine. This is like Christmas for me. It's not like, with all due respect to Paul Lesko, who's a tremendous guy and great human.
Yeah.
It's not Christmas for non-lawyers like
Right.
all of us here and probably most of the people in the chat room. But I understand what Paul means. That's his
Of
livelihood and he enjoys it. But I don't think it's really good for the hobby. And if there's someone asked if there's no football product this year, where does that hobby money go?
I think it goes
think
into
vintage
existing players.
It goes out of the hobby. That's where it goes.
That some of it's gonna for sure.
It goes to
right.
sports betting, daily fantasy.
Some absolutely will, but you'll also see a major rise in speculation of if we're looking at the football hobby, if you're talking about money in the football hobby, there are so many people that aren't getting looked at because there's been such a youth movement in the last 3 years that there's a lot of money to put in. There's a lot of money to put in a lot of rookies from previous years that are in their second and third year that could help carry the hobby. A lot would be put into the football market of old, and I think vintage as well. But there's a lot of players. The quarterbacks right now are all young and incredible. That there's a lot of places that money could go. But like I said before, in no situation does it not extremely hurt that side of the hobby.
Yeah, I mean the bottom line is just not a good look, right?
No.
And that's the unfortunate. And like I said, there could be a scenario where there's 3 L's here. Fanatics loses just by the way they look and how they've handled this, and they still don't get the license to 2026. Panini could lose by not getting to do their 2 years that they have left, and football can lose when there's no product in that span, when everyone is just trying to beat each other up, and ultimately the consumer loses because if you're a football guy, and I love football, you don't get to open any new product or get those rookies that we have.
Sorry, had to throw that in there real quick.
I think, guys, now that they have the Players Association backing them up, I think we'll see football product this year. I think they're just they're too big of a powerhouse right now. They're going to do what they want, and they'll figure out all that legal stuff later. And I don't know. That's just.
I think I would agree with you, Victor. I do think that there will end up being football products this year. I just think we're going to have to hear a lot of legal BS to get there.
Yeah,
and that's the sad part. But there we go. All right. Well, would anybody else with any final thoughts, or should we leave it for Danny, Jim, and Uncle Rich this Saturday to update everybody and kind of tackle this topic a little bit more?
Yeah, I think we kind of covered it. Shameless plug, like you just said, Drew. Dr. Beckett, Uncle Rich, and Danny will. I'm sure there'll be some new wrinkles between now and Saturday that they'll have additional stuff to tackle or comment on. But I think we don't do these kind of special episodes that often. I think the last time we did it was when the Topps news broke that they were going to lose the license. So I think people care. I think people care about their hobby enough to want to talk about it, discuss scenarios and what could happen. Everything we talked about doesn't mean it's going to happen. We're all speculating, but that's all we do. At this point, until it's all speculation until it's not. It's a famous line.
Exactly.
Use so.
Very well said.
Who needs cable TV when you have hobby news like this?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
cut the cord. Cut the cord. Save some money.
I just want to have fun. Can we not just have fun and not all this drama?
Well, Logan,
yes, you can. Logan. Yes, you can, Logan. It's called #BuyVintage.
Yeah, Logan, come out to the September show in Mooresville. Head on over to Mooresville. Come hang out in September. We'll have some fun.
Yeah, I can spend the night over in Val's house.
There you go. Perfect. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up right there. Thanks, John, Chris, Victor, and Logan. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. as we cover some interesting news in the hobby, because apparently it just will not slow down. But once again, guys, we are live every single Saturday at 11 a.m. and the first Tuesday of every month at 9 p.m. So make sure
and
to check those.
And now Mondays. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, and apparently now
whenever lawsuits break.
Yeah. We'll be your Fox News or your CNBC or whatever the hell channel you watch. We'll be that instead.
Yeah. What was it that Dandy Don said on Monday nights? Turn out the lights. The party's over.
Well, with that, there you
Keep
go.
rocking in the free world, folks.
See you guys later.
There you go.